Welcome to the Metropolitan Council Transportation Committee for August 25th, 2025. First order of business on our agenda is to our Dakota Land, Water, and People Acknowledgement. This is where we recognize our dedication to instilling land, water, and people commitments into regional policy. After that is moving on to approval of the agenda. If there are no changes or additions, we can proceed. All right, seeing none, moving on to approval of the August 11th meeting minutes. Were there any changes or additions? Seeing none, entertain a motion to approve. Moved by Councilmember Abusakin, seconded by Councilmember Osman. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay, and the motion carries. So our first activity tonight is employee recognition. I'm going to turn it over to Metro Transit General Manager Canderas.
All right. Thank you, Chair Barber, council members. As you know, we are busy serving the Minnesota State Fair, which is a big lift for staff across operations, especially our bus maintenance and bus transportation teams. That's actually not the reason we have representatives from those areas here tonight, but just because it is such a big lift every year, I wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you to all the people from those teams who are here today, as well as your peers and many others who are part of making that Minnesota Fair experience, State Fair experience so positive. But the real reason we have people from both our maintenance teams and transportation teams here today is to recognize all sorts of great work that's happening behind the scenes. For our maintenance team, we want to recognize the work going on to address critical workforce needs through our apprenticeship program. With their help and the support of many others, we have made some tangible progress in addressing worker shortages in our maintenance department, hiring nearly 100 maintenance staff so far this year. The operators here today are also part of providing strong leadership across Metro Transit. The group here tonight represented Metro Transit at the recent Minnesota Public Transportation Association's bus rodeo, where their skills were put to the test against operators from across the state. I'm excited to say that operator Jonathan Dumenya came out as the top operator in the competition, so special shout out to Jonathan, but excited we can recognize all our competitors here in a moment. Information about our future rodeos, both for operators and technicians, will be shared with all of you as we get closer to those dates, so you have an opportunity to come out and see firsthand how skilled our employees are at their trades. But with all of that, Madam Chair, if with your permission, I'd like to start off with Abel Moonby to come up and make the first round of introductions.
Sure. Madam Chair, members of committee, I'll stand here because the group is over here and over there. So there's for the maintenance group, there's primarily two groups here. So I'll call them out and then be able to thank them properly. So the first group is the JAC, or Joint Apprenticeship Committee, and that has half the union members and half management. So I'll start from on the far end there, Andrew Boldman, and there's Raphael Valle and Kurt Anderson, and then there's Daniel Kramer, who's also the maintenance manager of East. There's Jeremiah Ryder here, is taking a back seat out of this recognition, and then there's Tim Bowden. So these are the people that the JAC members, what they do is making sure that the training that we promised for the apprentices is the training that we deliver, and also making sure that the apprentices are also accountable for what they do. One point I'll make a note is that Raphael, Kurt, and Tim, and also Dan, they've been with the program way before we actually had the first students. So when it was just a dream, when about 5 or 6 years ago, they put their input towards that. The remaining of the group, these are actually the people that deliver the instructions, also help the mentors at the garage to be able ready to help. So Travis and we have Rich, and then Tim is actually their manager. So Travis and Dan Wolf, the senior trainers, and then Jason and Richard, they are technical trainers that they go to help mechanics hands-on at the garage. So as a group, I just want to say, acknowledge them in front of all you and say, hey, as we go about working on developing our workforce, these are the people behind that. So between their help, between their working together, especially the JAC, that's, I guess I could say, this is one of those good examples that showing labor and management working together, because this program cannot exist without that cooperation between management and labor. And through their leadership, our program is actually an example for other agencies of how well we're doing. And on that note, this is just the right time because we are in the middle of right now recruiting for the third cohort. And one highlight I want to put for Travis. Travis was one of the first people hired to the program. Actually, we hired him as an instructor from a technical college. He actually helped build the curriculum for that program. So with that, all of you, thank you. I appreciate it from me, and I know that you put your heart into this program, and you believe, you're investing in the employees, and with that, I just want to say thank you, yeah, that's it.
Awesome. So, thank you guys, and after we have the next set, I'll go over and hand out some plaques, but really want to thank all of you for all the work that you do. This is such an important program for our organization, and we all know it, that building the skills within and training the next generation of workers is so critical, and we really appreciate it.
And Madam Chair, with your permission, I believe Donathan Brown is here to introduce this year's bus rodeo contestants at the Minnesota Public Transportation.
I'll also stand here.
Yes, all right.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and council members. I'd like to present you 4 bus operators today. Jonathan Demenya, who the general manager just said won the state rodeo this year. First time for Metro Transit, by the way. I had the privilege of managing Jonathan Demenya at Snelling Garage and East Metro Garage after Snelling closed. Jonathan is a 26-year employee. He's participated in the rodeo every year that we've had it. It hasn't been 26 years, but every year that we've had the rodeo. Second person is Jonathan is from East Metro. Actually, 3 of the operators are from East Metro. I don't know what they're doing over there, but something's going on. And actually, the gentleman that's representing us in the international rodeo is from East Metro. So.
Wow.
The second person I'm introducing is Patrick Schulte. He's from Nicollet Garage. He's been here for 12 years, and he's participated in the rodeo 3 years. I also had a chance to manage Patrick. I've been here a long time at Nicollet Garage. Third person is Anton Peterson. He's been here 9 years. He's participated in the rodeo 6 times and placed several times. Last person I'm going to introduce is Nat Thomas, almost brand new, been here 1 year and 8 months, ahead of the game because they participated in the rodeo 2 times. So they're headed toward where Jonathan is. Congratulations to all of you.
Congratulations.
And for council members, if you don't know how difficult the rodeo is, road construction is nothing. Wow. That the safety department has it out for people when they put the barrels and the cones up. Every time you hit a cone, it's a point, and you've got 7 minutes to get through the obstacles. It is an obstacle course for bus operators. Come out and try it sometime. It's amazing.
Okay.
I tried it. I'm not good at it. That's why I'm here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Congratulations, everyone. All right, there's a lot of you today, so I'm just going to call out the different people, and you can come on up. Jan Kramer. Thank you so much. Congratulations. All right, Timothy Bowden. Thank you. Raphael Valley.
Do the important people first. Thank you.
Thank you. Kurt Anderson.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Andrew Boardman. Of course. Thank you so much. Travis Alquist. Don Wolf. Jason Cook. Thank you. And Richard Peterson. All right, Antoine Pearson.
Wow,
Thank you. Nicely done.
wow.
All right, Patrick Schultz. Thank you. Well done. Neff Thomas. Say welcome and thank you. Thank you. All right, and Jonathan and no? Maybe. Well done. Thank you all. Appreciate all your work. Thank you all so much, and I'm glad you got to be recognized today. We really appreciate all the work you do. Now on to more of our business. We're on to reports. So we have MTS Services Executive Director Carlson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon, council members. Much of what I could say is actually an agenda item tonight. So keeping it brief, I'll just say there's 2 days left to comment on the amendment to the transportation policy plan regarding the Blue Line and Gold Line extension project amendments. We will bring a report, an informational report, to your next meeting on comments received and the public comment report associated with it before bringing it for your approval action at the following meeting later in September. But speaking of your next meeting, September 8th, will be at Robert Street. So we'll not be here at Haywood, and you'll see a cancellation or a meeting change notice for location, but it's always tricky on which place we're going to be. Robert Street next time, and then back here for the balance of the fall.
Thank you. We will send extra reminders, I promise.
thank you.
So, any questions for Charles? All right, then turn it to Metro Transit General Manager Canderas.
All right, thank you, Chair Barber, committee members. I mentioned the State Fair earlier, but just again, excited to be serving the State Fair again this year. I did want to thank several representatives from our operations and maintenance departments before they left after employee recognition. But just as a reminder, and I know we covered it with this committee back in July as well, but we are operating 6 Park and Ride Express sites, taking people to the fair. That's on top of our regular service, including regular service that serves the fairgrounds. We also have a Metro Transit presence at the grandstand and at the Eco Experience building. So if you're out at the fair, please stop by, say hello. And just, again, it takes a lot of effort across Metro Transit to serve the fair each year. So wanted to extend my thanks not just to bus transportation maintenance, who was here represented earlier, but marketing, facilities maintenance, and so many others all play a role in that. I'm not going to start giving ridership numbers. They're preliminary now, but certainly when the fair wraps up, we'll make sure to share that with the committee. The other update I had this evening is just to keep on your radars that in September, we have a significant maintenance project as part of our broader Renew the Blue effort. That's renewing the Blue Line, which is 21 years old. And so starting September 22nd through the service day of October 3rd, which goes a little bit into the morning of October 4th, the entire Blue Line will be closed for maintenance. And this is the first time we've had the entire line closed for maintenance purposes, really since its opening. So just again, want to keep that on your radar because we know that's going to be a big deal for our riders, and we are actively communicating, and that communication will go into even higher gear after Labor Day. But again, it's a really important project, part of our broader state of good repair efforts and investing in asset management. So we will, of course, take any questions you have or receiving from riders as we get closer to that, but just wanted to keep it on people's minds. So with that, Madam Chair, I would take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, thank you. Now we're on to our third item, which is the tab liaison. We have Mr. Dugan here to report, and you've all received a handout, and you can use that and reference that. For the public, there's a copy of it on the table outside.
Madam Vice Chair, did you get a handout, ma'am?
I did.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, honorable committee members, and of course, Becky, who saved me this morning. I appreciate that. As you know, the regional solicitation, which is the process by which grants are given or made to cities, counties, et cetera, for certain projects, is being revamped this year. And one of the probably primary, not changes, but focus is on safety. And I thought, and with the permission of the chair and vice chair, that perhaps we could go through some safety, background and what all the different aspects of. And so today, what I'd like to do is go through some statistics, won't be boring, that have been furnished by MnDOT as part of some of their studies. And, excuse me, and these particular three are given annually to the AARP sponsored driver training for older adults and other folks. The first one, which is road ownership, if I could show that. That's the first one, okay? It shows that although 8% of the roads, or first of all, there's about 200,000 miles of roads, trunk, CASA, freeway, expressway in Minnesota. 57% of the traffic are on state roads. So just like trunk highways, anything that MnDOT maintains or is in charge of, not local roads. So you can see that they have, 8% of the roadway miles, but 50% of the vehicle miles traveled, which obviously is going to lead to more incidents on those highways, on those roadways. And then the county, again, you can see they have, 31% of the roads, but only 24, and et cetera, et cetera. And then the townships have 39, which are completely local. The townships have 39% of the roads, but only 2% of the traffic. So when one is looking at safety, is it a rural versus metro? Is it, high volume traffic, roadways versus more, as I said, more rural or less use? And the map to the left shows, I know it's pretty hard to read, but it's where all the different roadways are in the state. The second slide is the one that says intersection-related crash developments. And the portion to the right is the different types of roads that we have. And for each type of road, there's a function. That is, what is more important is to the left, where it shows access and mobility. It shows that city streets and township roads have about 75% of the traffic statewide. County roads, and to a lesser extent, county state aid highways make up only 10%. Then as we go down, the trunk highways and expressways are only 10%, and the freeways, the principal arterials as they're called, are only 5%, yet they generate a substantial percentage of fatal and serious accidents. And for an example of what the access versus mobility means, let's just say a cul-de-sac. It has plenty of use, needed access, but very limited mobility. Versus, let's say, a freeway, which is travel far, fast, and limited access. So again, the different functions of the road. And one could make an argument on the city streets and the township roads, let's say the cul-de-sac, that may need attention because of the amount of use that they get versus the mobility. Okay. And the last slide is safety focus areas. And may I draw your attention to the top where it says this is 218 versus 222. I have updated it in my own notes to 224. And these are the preliminary numbers from, through the end of 2024 from MnDOT. Intersection crashes are still the #1 cause of fatal and serious accidents in Minnesota. Lane departures, #2 at 33. Impaired, #3 again. Unlicensed, #4. So 24% of the crashes are caused by people who do not have a license. And then number 5, unfortunately, is non-motorist, which is pedestrian and bicycle. Okay, and these these are both, the numbers I gave you are metro. They also have metro and then statewide, and as we go along, if it's okay with you, I'll be focusing on Met Council jurisdiction roadways. All right, and if I may end with just a couple of quick stats. As you know, this MnDOT information is separate and distinct from what the council was doing with the Regional Safety Action Plan, which is underway for the safe streets and roads. But that applies to regional, local, and tribal. It does not, as my understanding, take into consideration freeways, expressways, CASA, trunk, et cetera. And one of the things that will have to be dealt in there is according to the Met Council study, that what they call high injury streets can have 31% of the fatal and serious accidents, but are only 1.8 of the regional overall miles. Okay, and just as a kind of a little, not background, but little anecdotes. In winter, crashes go down because there's less people on the road, less recreational, and less bikes. However, in summer, they call it anyone, anytime. And the numbers go up dramatically despite there being extra light and dry conditions. So in the next part, we'll talk about why and then get into conditions, and then also going down into countermeasures. Some things with a new thing called J-turns, but we'll get to that. And thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing me the time.
Absolutely. Questions or comments? So all of this is really helpful information as we're prepping for our kind of realignment of our regional solicitation cycle, because obviously safety is one of the pillars that we talked about as we did Imagine 2050, and it's also reflected in that work. And so it's very helpful to get some of this information to make sure we always have that context. Councilmember Carter.
Yeah, I did have a question. More and more people are using electric bikes,
Yes, sir.
and it's becoming like a third category between the bikes and the motorcycles. Are we looking at that, or are we going to have to change the way we keep?
I will find that out. That is a great question. And it's personal to me because in the neighborhood that I live in, I see a lot of younger folks, not even driver's license age, going through stop signs, no helmet, 15, 18 miles an hour. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a tragedy waiting to happen. So let me follow up on that, sir, if I may. Again, it's, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, additional questions or comments? All right, thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Pardon me, hold on, Councilmember Pacheco had something.
Madam Chair, council members, just to that, riding the scooters, to me, it's a motorized vehicle, but they get on the bike paths and by the time they say on your left, they've passed me by.
Yeah.
But my daughter's little friends there who have those bikes, they smashed up last week. One broke the leg and the other one broke the wrist, and it's like, they changed the regulators so they can go faster on these things. And so I think at some point, someone has to look at what role they do play in all of this.
If I may add, in Europe, there is a limit. I think it's 15 kilometers per hour. But it's under 20 miles an hour. In the United States, I think it's 28 miles an hour that it's under. But I could be wrong on that. But that's what I've read. And you've got the motorized scooters, motorized skateboards, and unfortunately, in my opinion, some of the younger folks don't understand the importance of traffic safety. And, stop signs and crosswalks and things like that. But anyway, I will find out, sir. Thank you.
All right, anything additional? Good comments, though. Thank you, Peter.
You're welcome, ma'am.
All right, now we are on to our last report, which is the Joint Labor Management Safety Committee. We have Abel Mumbai and Rafael Valley here, I believe.
Madam Chair, council members, I guess I'll properly introduce myself. This time around, I am Abel Mumbi, Director of Bus Maintenance, and also co-chair of the JLMSC with Rafael Valley.
My name is Rafael Valle, 18 years at Metro Transit, and I am the co-chair for the labor side with the JLMSC.
So what we'll go through will be fairly quick, but this is just a reminder that the JLMSC exists because we have an obligation based on the size of our agency that we need to be able to have a joint labor management safety committee with the purpose of making sure that committee is made out of both management and frontline employees. Also, just a summary here, the main focus, the main responsibility for that is to be able to review the safety agency plans and also to be able to review any safety incidents that happened and to be able to come up with mitigation or recommendation to make sure that we are able to improve. So as I stated, so if you look at how the committee is made up, on the labor side, we have bus operators, train operators, maintenance employees, which are mechanics, public facility workers, and also trip agents. On the other side, as shown here, we have leadership from bus maintenance, bus operations, rail, maintenance and operations, and facility maintenance as well. And purposefully, there's high level on the management side to make sure that there's people that can make the decisions on the committee. They're hearing firsthand what's going on, what's the risks that we're seeing out there in the system. So part of the main thing that the JLMSC looked at is re-looking at our current operator barrier. So we have here 3 different pictures, but they're basically showing the same thing. So the first part that has red boxes around there, what we were evaluating to see is that, hey, there's big spaces above the operator, in front of the operator, underneath the operator on the current barrier. The one in the middle, so the first part of those boxes also identify as disadvantages. The picture in the middle shows the current barrier completely open, folded. That was identified as one of the advantages. But nonetheless, the committee was able to look at it and say, hey, is there something else out there in the market that's better for operators? So the committee voted to say, let's pilot 2 different barriers. So the picture that you see here, the one to the left, it's where it shows 2 different barriers in gray. That's actually the same barrier, just shows one has a solid glass and the other one you can slide back and forth. And the one to the far right shows also a different barrier. So between these 2, the JAC voted that we should buy 5 of each. That will allow us to put 2 in each garage, re-engage with the operators and get operator feedback and see whether or not this would be able to fit the need that we're seeing out there. The other part of these barriers too, or the other advantage is that because of the way they're designed, if we were at one point wanted to increase, in other words, go all the way to the top of the bus to close out more, there's a structure in place to be able to make more closures if needed. But again, this is just a recommendation by the committee. So once we get the barriers, they'll be put in the system, test them out, get feedback, and we'll come back and see whether or not that's something that this committee is looking to move forward with it. You want to add anything?
We feel in the labor side that it's important for our operators' safety that a bus barrier be in there. The last design, and there was a lot of gaps and things that made it not so suitable for the safety of our operators, where liquids could be thrown at them, they could be forcibly open. So by us looking into this new pilot and bringing it out to all of our service garages, we could get a better look and opinion from our operators who are out there on an everyday basis.
Sure. Okay, Councilmember Chambliss?
Yeah, so I'm glad that you explained what the issues were in a little more detail with the current. But for the new, I'm sorry, for the new, you have an option for the operator to, if it's a slide, then they can choose how much of a barrier they want. But the other one, that's static, that will just be, they will have to walk around to get into the seat, or, it's hard to see from this angle what the difference is, but what I can see is there are bolts on the left of the one that has the slide. I don't see the bolts for the one that's on the right, which is, it seems like it has more, less options for movement on the right.
So, Madam Chair and committee member, so these doors, they are solid. So they actually, both of these, they act just like your regular door. So meaning, sorry, I don't have a pointer here, but the whole piece in the gray there, it opens just like a vehicle door, so to speak. And then if you go to the one to the right, you can see where the solid black all the way to the glass, that's one piece that opens. So I will make this point here is that one of the aspect of either of these, if we were to move forward, if we're either of these, there would be no option to leave it to leave it open. So these are just a full solid door. If we're to move forward with this, operators won't have a choice to leave it open because it does not have that functionality. So you basically trade more safety versus, comfort or,
It's just a basis of safety over comfort. It's better. And then I know we'll get a lot of feedback from our members regarding that, but I think in the long run, the safety aspect will outweigh the few comforts they'll give up for them to be in there.
Councilmember Carter? And
Yeah,
then-
how does that affect the exiting? Let's say if a driver, it was an accident, and the driver had to get out of there quickly. Is there an advantage, one model over the other, as to how quickly a driver could get out to, escape the safety of themselves if an accident occurred in the front part of the bus?
Madam Chair and committee member, so both of these have option to, for the sake of safety, where to override. So in other words, if the operator is not able to respond, there's something that's built in to be able to open it from the outside. There is, part of also the concern when you're thinking about it is that if you compare to currently being an open space and having a door there, there's an aspect of comfort for other people feeling like they're totally enclosed. But to answer more of your question, if there's an event that happens there, there's a way to override the door to be able to open it.
You gotta fail safe.
Sure, very similar to his questions. This is coming from a firefighter's point of view. Have firefighters gone through these safety measures? Because that was kind of tied into my question. When the bus crashes, me as a firefighter, I want to get the victim out as quick as possible. So I'm just asking, maybe another set of eyes to review, look at this would be great. Because that's one of the things that makes me angry. I'm trying to save a life and there are barriers.
Sure.
And then, just a thought, maybe.
Yeah, and I think, Madam Chair and Council Member, part of what we could do, like we do with electric buses, when we have if we have electric buses, we engage with the cities, fire department, so they're familiar with our equipment. Part of what we can do is for those communities in our area that want to know how to access this, how to override it, to be able to communicate with that.
Thank you.
If I may, just to continue real quick so I can finish up. So the other business that we're handling for the sake of the committee, the main thing would be focusing on the safety agency plans to be able to review from previously, make updates as needed. One thing also that we're really focusing on is how do we encourage our employees to be, or how do we encourage operators to be able to self-report? So we're reaching out to other agencies to see what they do for self-reporting, and we were able to get some information through our safety departments. We heard back from some agencies, and we'll continue to look at our process to see if there's any adjustments that we can make there. And the main point also, we continue reviewing if there's a safety incident that happens in our system. It comes to the committee for us to be able to review, ask the information that we need, ask information from other peer agencies, how they handle it, and move forward from there. Anything you want to add?
Once again, we believe in the labor side that self-reporting is an important part. It will help out get rid of that negative that culture that is devised management between labor side, and it helps out. It will help out our safety department or even our operators go in there with comfort of, hey, this thing happened, and I'm just letting you know that this incident happened without repercussion of being what do you put reprimanded. So that's one of the big focus we've been working on, and alongside with safety incidents, and obviously working down on assault over operators and our first line responders.
Good, thank you. Are there other questions or comments? Oh, just a couple of quick comments. I'm really glad that you're reviewing the barriers. I mean, when we first put the barriers in place, it was, it was something that was done talking with operators and people, and we did the similar thing where you let people try it and see how they feel, see what works, what doesn't work. But, obviously the most critical thing is the safety of our operators. So it's so important. So I'm really glad you're getting a few options and are going to test them out in the system and see how people feel about them, because remember when we did that, there were a lot of different responses. And so I think it's a good idea to get that feeling. I also am excited to hear reaching out to other agencies about the self-reporting. It is critical because we do want people to report things. It's the only way we really know what's going on or hear about things. Like you said, it has to be done in a way that you get a respectful and responsive action to that with no reprimands. That's not the goal of it. The goal is to have a program in place that is, a way for people to feel safe and comfortable reporting things that they see. So I'm really glad you're looking out at other agencies to see if they have some best practices and can bring those back to us. So I really appreciate it. For our newer council members on this committee, this group reports to us. We try to get them in here quarterly. They're an important part of our team and our structure. Obviously, we want our management, our frontline workers, people all talking to each other so that we can problem solve in real time. So this has really been an important group that we've stood up here. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, with that, any final questions, comments?
Thank you.
All right, thank you both. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you, appreciate it.
All right, on to business items. Our first item is one item on consent. I would entertain a motion to approve the item on consent.
Motion to approve?
Moved by Councilmember Chambliss. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Lee-Stockin. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay, and the motion carries. On to our non-consent business. The first one is business item 2025-137, which is the Metro Blue Line Extension Adequacy Determination. We have Kelcie Young here to present.
Thank you, Madam Chair, committee members. I'm here to present this business item related to the adequacy determination for the Metro Blue Line Extension project. As a reminder, the Metro Blue Line Extension project would extend the existing Blue Line light rail from Target Field Station, serving the communities of Minneapolis, Robbinsdale, Crystal, and Brooklyn Park, with a terminus station up at Oak Grove Parkway in Brooklyn Park. The project would add 13.4 miles of light rail and 13 new light rail stations, connecting the communities along the corridor to fast, frequent, all-day service, and provide a single-seat ride to the destinations along the existing Blue Line light rail. Throughout the project's development, we have focused on building community prosperity through anti-displacement strategies focused on the period before, during, and after construction. To provide a bit of environmental review background, the project has been under environmental review since 2014, starting with a draft environmental impact statement for the previous route. That route was then studied in a 2016 final environmental impact statement that ended in a record of decision that concluded the environmental review for that previous iteration or version of the project. In 2020, the Metropolitan Council in Hennepin County determined that alignment was not able to advance due to the relationship of the project with the freight rail right-of-way, and issued a joint statement to continue to study the project without using that freight rail alignment. That led to several years of engagement and review of alignments, and that led to a route modification report in 2022 with a community-supported route that is largely reflected in what was studied as part of the project and in that alignment map shown on the previous slide. With that, we reinitiated environmental review, starting with a notice of intent to prepare a supplemental draft environmental impact statement under the Minnesota Environmental Policy Act that then initiated a supplemental environmental impact statement. In 2024, we published a supplemental draft environmental impact statement, and then in May 2025, we published a supplemental final environmental impact statement. And so this action before you is the parallel step to the Federal Transit Administration's amended record of decision that was signed on August 11th, 2025. This is the parallel step under the Minnesota Environmental Policy Act, where the Met Council is the what's called under the state statute the responsible governmental unit. We are both, the Met Council is both the responsible governmental unit and the project proposer in partnership with the Federal Transit Administration and Hennepin County as part of the project as a whole. But this function lands within Metropolitan Council. So the action before you is to request to sign the adequacy determination that determines that the supplemental final environmental impact statement appropriately concludes our environmental review under the Minnesota Environmental Policy Act, and that would then conclude the environmental review step for the project. What that step means is that would clear the project to advance towards final design. The project is currently at a roughly 60% milestone and move towards acquiring permits. Those permits generally relate to project construction, so there's still some time to work through coordination with permitting agencies and actually acquire those permits, but the adequacy determination paired with the federal step of the amended record of decision environmentally clear the project to advance. And with that, I have the business item with the requested proposed action for the Metropolitan Council to determine the adequacy of the supplemental final environmental impact statement for the Metro Blue Line Extension project and to authorize the chair to sign the adequacy determination on behalf of the council.
Thank you very much. Questions or comments? Okay. All right. I have one question about the acquiring of permits. When would we, when would that start occurring? Is that, I'd like to understand that.
Madam Chair, the permits, we have a whole set of project permits. Some of them are environmental specific, some of them are with our project partner agencies. Each has their own timeline, and for the most part, the permits that are required for the project team to acquire would generally want to be in place by the time we are issuing construction bids And so that can be included in that contract package. So there's still time between now where we can re-engage with our permitting agencies and work towards those formal permit applications and then the permit approval process. So steps ahead of us, and generally speaking, some of those steps ahead of us on the project would, require further council actions, procurement and so forth. And so the project team will be back before we formally get into those steps to authorize the project for
There we go.
construction.
That was where I was headed. All right. Okay. Additional questions? Councilmember Johnson.
Madam Chair, thank you for asking that question, because my thought process too was, where does this fit in with all of the decisions that'll be coming up in the next 6 months to a year? So I appreciate that information. I'll just be very candid. I have read, the EIS statements going way back, and I'm just going to continue to say I really have concerns about this mode in this corridor, and that when you go back and you look at the originals, LRT in this corridor that is now the new option, or the revised corridor, was not favorable. So I understand that we couldn't be on BNSF, that's all ancient history. I will be voting to support this tonight as another piece of it narrowly. But these are all based on building blocks that have decades now of history to them. And just still hearing, some of those concerns that are still coming in about this corridor and the impacts to the community and those very things for this mode having been called out in probably 2014, I think, that EIS was done, and then the switch. So I'll support it tonight, but I'm really looking at my decision in those incremental decisions as we go forward. My only other question is this, again, are we in the phase where Hennepin County has still got the grant funding or the funding that's coming to the council to continue moving these pieces forward?
Madam Chair, council member, the actions and steps related to the project budget, for example, the environmental mitigation is part of our project cost estimates and so forth. But those steps to work towards formalizing the project funding are ahead of us still. And not this action to determine that the supplemental final EIS is adequate is a separate step that would, continue the project on the path towards those future, steps of formally requesting project funding.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. And I do appreciate that, again, the timing of, permits and potential acquisitions of property and all that. We've really got to watch that alignment as we go forward in the future, since we don't have the final funding as determined by the federal government yet. So thank you for this report. It's very thorough, and I'll be supporting it tonight narrowly.
Okay, additional questions or comments? Councilmember Osman, then
Thank you,
Obi-Sakin.
Madam Chair. Just briefly, where we are with the FTA right now? What is the next step with the FTA?
Madam.
Alicia's sneaking up behind you.
Hi, afternoon. My name is Alicia Vapp. I'm the project director. So could you repeat your question?
Yeah, I'm just asking briefly where we are with the FTA right now.
Sure. So as Kelcie talked about, the amended record of decision, which is a really big milestone in the project. And so right now, we're continuing to work with the FTA. We have a couple milestones that we just submitted a lot of information last Friday for a pre-ratings package going to FTA. So that's a big milestone that our team has worked on. Another key milestone is we're completing information this week so they can conduct a risk assessment, and that will happen this fall. And so that will help kind of finalize our schedule and budget. And of course, we will be coming back to this group and to the council with updates when we know that updated information. So we're continuing through the process.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Councilmember Obi-Sakin.
Oh, no, ma'am.
Oh,
No.
sorry, I thought your hand was up too.
No, sorry.
Very good. All right, additional questions or comments? Councilmember Chambliss.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm glad that you asked your questions because that prompted some additional information, and that is regarding the letter of rating for the FTA. As we know, there's going to be a lot of different steps that we take as we plan and implement this project. And I think it's prudent to have the adequacy of determination by and to the FTA so that we can go through this process in a prudent manner.
Additional questions or comments? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve business item 2025-137.
So move.
Moved by Councilmember Osman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Obisaki. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you. Now we're on to business item 2025-170. It's a joint committee item. It's the transit funding allocation policy. And we have Charles Carlson here.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, council members. Charles Carlson. I serve as Executive Director for MTS. Pleased to bring forward business item 2025-170, which is a joint item. Will be at the Management Committee this Wednesday before we go to the Met Council on September 10th. This item is an update to our transit funding allocation policy. We spent over an hour talking about this just last Wednesday, so I won't plan to repeat a lot of that, but I will quickly recap the high points. This policy updates how we allocate federal, local, and regional transportation sales and use tax funds amongst transit providers, which include the council, suburban transit providers, or replacement service municipalities, as they're referred to in law, and the University of Minnesota. Those three sources, federal, sales tax, and local levy funds, briefly. On the federal side, we would be increasing the federal funds that go to providers, so not just the additive funds that result from their reporting of their data, but actually the full amount of funds that their service would earn if they were their own region in terms of the suburban providers. So it's an increase of federal formula funds. The University of Minnesota would also see a small increase as a result of receiving service incentives that are in the federal formula that they do not currently receive under today's approach. The council would receive remaining funding from this source. The transportation sales and use tax. This is an important new revenue source in the last couple of years. When the legislature passed the 2023 Transportation Omnibus Bill, there were a number of different changes within that bill that in how we receive funding and from what sources. It replaced funds that came from the county. It replaced a state obligation for rail transit, and it replaced structural operating deficit that had been filled with one-time state funds year after year. That was eliminated by passing the sales tax, which is great news. But it also meant that of this new funding source, about 3/4 actually replaced sources that came to us from other sources for Met Council transit operations.
Madam Chair. And
Councilmember Johnson.
thank you, Madam Chair. And just briefly, Charles, can you kind of put some actual like big numbers to that amount?
Yes, Madam Chair, I don't have great facts in front of me today, but a couple data points. For example, the metropolitan counties funded between 50% and 100% of transitway operations. That over the time period that we use as our forecast basis, 25 years, would add up to about $4.5 billion. So each of these different buckets is billions of dollars over a 25-year period, pretty material amount. Often when we're conversing with people, there isn't a realization on the extent to which sales tax replaced funds that came from other sources. And so that's always part of our education curve.
And Madam Chair, if I may just emphasize, again, Charles, and the amount then that the sales tax coming to Metro Council did not replace that 1-to-1. It was up, what'd you say, 75%?
Yes, Madam Chair, Council Member, 75%. When we look forward 25 years at the lines that are currently in our plan and the obligations associated with those lines that the state has invested in and the state requires that we operate, it's 75% of the total sales and use tax is directed for those purposes for operations. There are further obligations in state law on certain elements of planning, including any remaining balance for rail capital maintenance must be funded by the council, in this case from its share of the next piece, which is the piece that we're allocating amongst providers. The 75% is just operating sources.
And Madam Chair, I just think that's really important because there was a big hole. We called it the fiscal cliff for a very long time. And that's the piece that had to be filled. And because of the 2023 legislative decision, that new funding was put in place and then money started to come in. But it wasn't a one-to-one and there were other obligations too. So I think as we just look at how the money is eventually, which Charles will get to, distributed out, I believe, and I think we believe at Met Council that the intent was that that money get in that hole to fill us back up, to make us as whole as possible as we look out to the future for our transit obligations.
Thank you. The other 25% is one of the subjects of this proposed action. What we recommend after developing three options that range from around 1% to 4.5% of the transit portion of the sales tax. We recommend a population-based distribution which correlates to 4.55% to the suburban providers in the region. And this would be allocated amongst the 12 cities based on census population. The policy is open to, if there's another way that those providers would like to allocate the 4.55% at the city level, the policy is open to that, but our default position would be the allocation would follow census population. So it'd be divided proportionally amongst the 12 cities that way.
Councilmember Chambliss.
Thank you, Chair. And Director Carlson, that 4.55%, you came to that number as a quarter of the 25% population allocation, is that correct?
Yes, Madam Chair, Council Member. So about 24.47 is the percentage that's not directed by state law. These providers comprise about 19% of the region's population, these 12 cities. So 19% of 24.47% is that 4.55%.
Oh, okay, 19%. Okay, thank you.
With the balance, the 81% of that share coming to the council, which is about 20% of the 24. The policy also covers potential uses of these funds for active transportation. This is a provision that's allowed by law, and the council would allow it for these 12 cities should they choose to spend transit funds allocated to them on biking and walking purposes. It's something that's allowed by law.
And Madam Chair,
Councilmember
just
Johnson.
to make the point, again, the money is allocated to cities, and so when we are looking at some of these funds going to STA Suburban Transit Association provider communities, the money will go to the cities, and the cities then can fund their program through STA, but it actually, through state law, has been given to the cities, and that's why that active transportation piece of it can be considered as well for these funds.
Yeah, Madam Chair, Council Member, this really is one of the next steps we'd be identifying in procedure. We're allocating it at the city level, but the funding would be passed through to the providers, less any share that a city indicates they'd like to reserve for active transportation use, in which case we'd send that share to the cities because it's political subdivisions and 501c3 nonprofits that are identified in the law as the eligible recipients for transportation, or for active transportation uses. So it's just one distinction that we'd be continuing to work on in the procedure step of this. And then second, fair collection system. So the council is currently has some various requirements that go with the vehicles that we own that are used by suburban providers. We would be relinquishing a lot of the control that we currently have over these systems. One that we will retain a need for, and it's required by state law, is our responsibility for fair collection systems. And so that's something we'll be defining further as we go along, but the policy sets forth that we will have fair collection systems agreements, not to be burdensome or onerous, but to really have a firm understanding of what our roles and responsibilities are and what the provider's roles and responsibilities are for fair collection. And then the third piece is really related to our transit capital levy. We issue a property tax levy every year in the region. This is for transit debt service. The proposal is that we would allocate the amount that we levy in these 12 cities to the providers in these 12 cities to use for transit purposes. When the council uses these funds, we can only use it for capital. These providers would be able to use it for capital or operating, depending on what their needs or their priorities may be. So the reason for that is that for various reasons, we would keep the regional transit capital ourselves because we need to own both the debt and the assets associated with that specific funding. But we could pass through other funding equivalent to what we levy in these cities so that we're fiscally responsible for that funding source, but also providing it through an allocation, likely of sales tax funds, to these providers so that they can pursue their system. We would only issue this in years that we're in receipt of legislative authority to actually issue RTC. Reason for that being, if we can't issue bonds against this, we don't have this revenue source for ourselves, we can't substitute a different source to these providers. All of us will be interested every 2 years to get permission from the legislature to continue this important source of funding. We've been in development of this policy for some time. Roughly a year ago, we rolled out many of the policy provisions that we're sharing here that have been really steady across that whole time, related to RTC, as I just mentioned, related to the federal funding. We've had interim allocations of sales tax funds while we've developed this policy. It was not until the legislature completed its work this year that we knew the inputs to a 25-year forecast. That allowed us to bring forth the population-based recommendation for allocating the sales tax funds that you've seen here.
And Madam Chair, just briefly.
Councilmember Johnson.
On timing, so again, legislature had to do their work, and then we could move forward to do all of the forecasting and so on and so forth. And we are working then to get these decisions made so that people will know then with certainty what their budgets, what their budget allocations will be coming to them so that they can put their budgets together by the time their levies have to be adopted in December. Would that be correct? Yeah,
Madam Chair, Council Member, at your last meeting, you saw information that had placeholder materials, and we don't want placeholder materials. We want the actual basis to be in place so that providers can develop budgets for 2026 and a longer-term picture beyond that. We have had letters, and there are letters attached, an initial letter, a response letter, another letter that we received on Friday afternoon that we added to your packet for today. The Suburban Transit Association, would like us to fund that at a level at 12.35%, which is much more than the 4.55% that is recommended, as well as the University of Minnesota would like a share. But as I explained last week, we are not the funder of university services. It's really an internal circulation service that they provide, so it's not part of the proposed policy.
Madam Chair, just briefly
Councilmember
again, thank you.
Johnson.
I just wanted to go on the record that I did receive an email from Maple Grove, and I copied you, Madam Chair, and you, Charles, on that, and I'll try to be meeting with them tomorrow virtually, so if there's any way just to connect with them about what their concerns are on that. But just on the record, we got one from them today, too.
Sounds great, and we can add that as we're going to our packet as we're going toward the council.
Thank you.
So it's all on the record.
Councilmember Chambliss.
Thank you. Since we're talking about Plymouth, I think we heard I heard for the first time at the Committee of the Whole meeting about our service agreement with Plymouth and Maple Grove in terms of they're wanting to use our Metro Transit services and vehicles, and then that would follow with, we will be following up with discussions on what that service agreement looks like with them. Is that correct? And that might have something to do with the letter, because I didn't see the letter, I don't know, but I know that that's also a part of it.
Yeah, Madam Chair, Council Member, right now Maple Grove hires Metro Transit to deliver their service through an interagency agreement that the council has approved. That is the model that we would continue, and one that we would enter into with Plymouth, should Plymouth not seek to be a direct recipient of federal funds, which they've said they do not want to be a direct recipient. So by the council delivering those services, we can better manage the risk that those services have from a federal compliance standpoint. And can also simplify some of the service delivery. Maple Grove has some of the most cost-effective service in the region, thanks in part to the partnership we have with them and the efficiencies that we can offer due to the scale of Metro Transit. So that's something we'd continue. There might be even simpler and easier and more straightforward ways we can partner, and that's what we'd be exploring after this policy adoption phase, and eager to connect and continue that conversation. In terms of the funding associated with these changes, for the suburban providers of the sales tax and other sources over the next 25 years, we estimate a combined $3.8 billion of funding assistance to the 12 cities and how they're organized as providers. In terms of the funds that are allocated directly to them, this is a 60% increase in funds that are directly allocated, but they're also responsible for things that currently the council funds separately through a pooled approach. So when we replace things like bus replacement and those factors out, that still nets out to what we estimate as an 11% increase in funding to these providers, as well as significant additional control over what their priorities may be by controlling the funding streams that they receive. So we estimate a increase that would be even greater as a net should they make changes that reduce their fleet count. Right now, there's some providers that have a lot of extra buses. Our 11% net increase would be if we replaced every single one of those, but they could do even more because they could decide what they want to do with the funding. So with that, Madam Chair, we'll be bringing this forward again to management, but today that concludes my presentation, and the proposed action is that the council adopt the attached policy and direct staff to implement procedures to implement the policy. With that, I'd be happy to answer further questions.
Thank you, Charles. Any additional questions or comments? I'm just going to say one more time, this has been an incredible amount of work. Like Charles said, some of it's going back into 2023, meeting with providers in early 2024. It's been a lot of interaction and back and forth. I think that, to have this holistic understanding of the sales tax money and how the transit funding overall works and goes out to the different agencies is really, really important for us. So really, again, I'm going to commend you and your team. I mean, I know it's been a ton of work, and I'm very excited to be on to this next step. So if there's no additional questions, then I'd entertain a motion to approve business item 2025-170 JT.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Carter, seconded by Councilmember Obi-Sacken. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you, Charles. All right, on to business item 2025-194. Another joint committee item was the 2025 budget amendment. And we have Ruth Crowline and Heather Giesel. Crowlane, pardon me.
No problem. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Ruth Crowlane, and I'm Metro Transit Budget Manager, and I'm here with Heather Giesel, Finance Director of MTS. We are presenting BI 2025-194JT, which is the Q3 2025 budget amendment. So I'll go through the list of items for Metro Transit, and as a note, all projects are included in the CIP and funding is available. So first, sort of an overview, we are bringing federal funds into this amendment and doing a few swaps. There's some shifts in funds for funding for other projects, as well as closing out some projects that were completed. And as far as new requests, we're bringing in non-revenue vehicles, both replacement and expansion. And then on the We're also bringing in LOT state of good repair projects, including corrosion mitigation, rail replacement, and platform refurbishments. We're using 5337 federal state of good repair funds for some of those. On the support facility side, bringing in funding for Transfer Road for design and renovation. This is for roof replacement and building facade repairs. North Loop garage expansion for design and renovation for Fairbox radio and tech addition. Roof and HVAC replacements for a total of $13 million. Material management storage facility for the build-out of a consolidated material management facility. And customer facilities, Rosedale Transit Center for exterior and interior rehab, and Uptown Transit Station to upgrade and right-size the station. And Gold Line Phase 2, for $12 million for buses. And Sea Line for project development for the permanent stations on Olson Memorial Highway Corridor. And technology, including the business process system integration and IS equipment. The Metro Transit totals are federal of about $42 million, reducing MVES for 4.2 for the federal swaps, RTC of 29 million, sales tax of 39.2 million for a total Metro Transit ask of $105.6 million. And now Heather will be presenting on the MTS amendment items.
Thanks, Ruth. Hi, Heather Giesel. I'm the Director of Finance and Administration for Community Development and Metropolitan Transportation Services. So for the MTS portion of the amendment, first in the administrative adjustment section, just as a quick reminder, there's no formal action for you all to take on this section, but we do include these items for transparency and accounting purposes. So we are repurposing existing funding that is already in the authorized capital program to complete 13 projects. One project is complete, and the remaining funds from that project have been reallocated to the undesignated account for future programming. There are also administrative adjustments for STP projects, including bus technology projects, IT software, and station improvement work for Southwest Transit. In the new projects section, we are authorizing the 2025 NTD earnings. That's what we refer to, the NTD earnings. Those are the 5307 apportionment that comes to the region. And so these are the apportionments that are being authorized for the suburban transit providers. We replaced their federal funds with sales tax. You may recall we used to do either MVEST or RTC. We now are swapping that out with sales tax to put into their undesignated accounts for use in future projects. This year, we are also utilizing the new allocation methodology that distributes additional incentives that would have been outlined in the policy that was just brought here to Transportation Committee. So there were some incentives for population and density and some other factors that we are now spreading more equally across the region. It results in just over $5 million of additional funding to the suburban transit providers, which is just shy of actually double what we had given them in 2024. It also, in this section, there is a new project for the Plymouth Northwest Greenway facility, which will provide year-round transit access to the Greenway Park and Ride. As far as MTS projects go, there are transit master routers for Plymouth vehicles and Rangers tablets for MTS replacement and expansion buses. In the closing project section, staff have identified 2 projects totaling approximately $107,000 that are in our ACP that are fully expensed and can be closed. On the operating side, we are authorizing a $100,000 increase in transportation planning revenue and expenses for the Metro Mobility forecasting analysis that was required by the 2025 legislative session. MnDOT is hiring a third party to conduct the study, but the council must pay for that study out of sales tax as required by law. The amendment also authorizes nearly $1.1 million in MVEST revenues to be transferred from the contracted services operating budget to the capital program. We use this for engines, transmissions, midlife rehabs, and STP and some STP projects. So that completes my section. This amendment demonstrates commitment toward asset preservation and supports stewardship of the region's resources by assessing future needs, responsible planning, and management of financial resources for Metro Transit and Metropolitan Transportation Services. Our requested action is that the Metropolitan Council authorize the 2025 Unified Budget Amendment as indicated and in accordance with the attached tables. Thank you, and we're happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you both. Are there questions or comments?
Great work.
It's a lot of information to report, so yes, so thank you very much. If there are no questions, then I'd entertain a motion to approve business item 2025-194 JT. And Councilmember Johnson makes the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Chambliss. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you. All right. On to business item 2025-201, which is the Metro E-Line Amendment 1 to Engineering and Construction Administration Contract. And we have Adam Smith here. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair Barber and council members. I'm presenting business item 2025-201, Metro E-Line Engineering and Construction Administrative Services, Contract 21P364, Amendment 1. So just starting out with a little bit of a refresher or maybe introduction to the E-Line corridor, about a 13-mile corridor that'll be running along University Avenue and 4th Street, Hennepin Avenue, and France Avenue. It'll have 34 stops between Metro Green Line Westgate Station in St. Paul and Southdale Transit Center in Edina, and it represents the substantial replacement of Route 6, which is one of our region's highest ridership local bus routes. A little bit of a background on the overall approach to station construction. E-Line construction began last year in 2024 and has continued throughout 2025 towards an opening day on December 6th, just 103 short days away from today. The approach has been most platforms, 40 station platforms, have been or are being built by the E-Line contractor, and then quite a few platforms have been built and are being built through cooperative construction agreements with Hennepin County, the City of Minneapolis, and MnDOT-led projects. Just providing a little bit of a background on how we've gotten to where we are. This map shows construction status as of January 2025. 2024 was a very challenging year for E-Line construction. It required a greater level of support for construction support, just to make sure that we had resources in place to adequately oversee construction. And in 2024, the E-Line contractor did not complete as many stations in that construction year as we initially anticipated. So, really you're looking at sort of where we started the year here in 2025. There were still quite a few stations there that hadn't been started. And we entered 2025 with just a lot more construction that needed to take place over this season. So now, fast forward to August 2025, you'll see a lot more green on this map, which makes me very happy. But we've made excellent progress over the 2025 construction season. Really pleased to provide the update that we are on track for civil completion. You can see we're now up to 36 platforms that have been substantially completed. That number has even gone up since we finalized this slide deck. So we're really getting towards the end here of the civil construction of the E-Line and really turning our focus now to completing electrical and communications connections along the corridor, as well as installation of amenities. In terms of contract 21P364, this was awarded to HDR in 2022. In addition to design of E-Line stations, the scope included construction administration and materials testing. So throughout this 2025 season, we've really needed a higher level of effort as part of especially the construction administration portion of this, which has included inspectors working longer weeks, additional number of inspectors, and just as kind of an illustration of this, typically and historically, During construction of arterial BRT projects, we've planned on having 5 or 6 stations being concurrently constructed, and for a good chunk of this season, we've had somewhere between 10 and 12 stations under concurrent construction. So quite a bit more effort, which has required a higher level of oversight. The proposed amendment would also replenish the contingency budget as part of this contract. There have been a number of significant draws on contingency, which has included design and construction of additional scope that has been proposed by and funded by local partners, including Hennepin County and the City of Minneapolis, design of temporary stations to align with MnDOT's future project, which will construct permanent stations at 3 locations. As I mentioned, the additional efforts for construction administration, and then administration of a new community-based organization grant program, which will support our efforts toward opening day as we launch the E-Line. So to conclude, the proposed action is that the Metropolitan Council authorized the regional administrator to execute an amendment for contract 21P 364 with HTR Incorporated that will increase the contract value by $1,292,869 for a total contract not to exceed amount of $12,034,714. And with that, I will stand for questions.
Thank you. Are there questions or comments from council members? Seeing none, then I'd entertain a motion to approve business item 2025-201.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Osman. Is there a second? Second. By Councilmember Obi second. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you. We look forward to the opening. All right, on to business item 2025-207, which is the Metro Green Line Extension Site Maintenance. And we have Jim Alexander here.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Jim Alexander, Project Director for the Green Line Extension. And this item is a contract for site maintenance. As the project is over 85% complete, we are starting to take over some of the sites. We have 16 stations and a number of park and ride areas on the project. And so this contract would handle lawn mowing, weed control, snow removal, those type of things. Currently, our contractors have been doing that work, but the civil construction is a little over 95% done, and systems is a little over 80% done. So we're starting to take control of some of these sites, particularly out west. And so this procurement started earlier this year with invitation for bids advertised in June of 25, and we received 4 bids. Those were open July 22nd, and the bids ranged from the $375,000 and change to about $2.6 million. It was determined, the land sculpt was determined to be the low responsive bidder. They were the second lowest of this procurement here at with the bid amount of $687,284. They did meet, OEO confirmed they did meet the 21% goal that was set out on this project. And so, Madam Chair, council members, the proposed action is the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to award and execute contract 25P074 with Landsculpt to provide site maintenance services in an amount not to exceed $687,284. And I would note that this is within the project budget of $2.86 billion. So with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Jim. You know I was going to ask that, so I appreciate that. Any questions or comments from council members? All right, seeing none, then I'd entertain a motion to approve business item 2025-207.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Osman, second by Councilmember Obi-Saken. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
All right, on to our final business item, which is business item 2025-216, which is the 2026 through 2029 Transportation Improvement Program. We have Joe Barbeau here to present.
Thanks, Chair. I'm here to talk about item 2025-216, the Transportation Improvement Program, and this is a
pretty short one, but I know we have some new folks here, so some of you bear with me. You've probably heard this several times. So the question here is, what is the TIP? And the TIP is a 4-year program of transportation projects funded in whole or in part with federal funding. Any project that gets any federal funding, whether it's $1 or 100%, would need to be included in the TIP in order to get funding from the US DOT. We also do include projects that are regionally significant, for which we have a definition that usually involves lane additions or interchanges. Regardless of whether they're funded federally, it's pretty rare that a project would be in the TIP without federal funding, because those are that would be a very big project, and most localities don't have that. We did have that last year, but that project has since received federal funding. So all MPOs in the country have to have a TIP, and the TIP is incorporated then into MnDOT's STIP, State Transportation Improvement Program, and that's the actual milestone that it needs to be to get federal funding. But the STIP is to, at least for our planning area, reflect our TIP 1-for-1. And so this year we have about 600 and some projects, just over 600 projects. That's pretty normal. $6.2 billion total, that's also pretty normal. And it lasts for 4 years, and then projects in the first year, in theory, should be underway this coming year. Oh, yeah. So here's the schedule of where we're at, and we're in the bold where we're going through transportation committees. So what we're being asked, what's being asked today is to recommend approval of the TIP for the to the council, the full council, at its next, well, its meeting, whatever it is, 16 days from. Oh no, yeah, 16 days from now or whatever it is. And we've been through a pretty lengthy process where we get the draft data in April, and we churn that out in May, where the TAD released the TIP for public comment. We had a public meeting. There were no comments really received at that meeting, but there was a pretty good discussion amongst the handful of attendees, sort of about the entire process. And then TAB looked at this last week and recommended approval of the TIP. So I'm going to talk briefly about the public comments. We do have a public comment process, 45 days, with a public meeting every year, where we receive anywhere from 5 to 205 comments. If you were around last year and remember, we had 70 or so comments devoted entirely to the I-94 bridges. And so we talked about that at length a little bit last year. This year we had 8 comments. There wasn't a polarizing issue. There wasn't a mailing campaign to get more comments in. So it wasn't a particularly egregious or difficult process. Most of the comments, in fact, all the comments were related to things like modes I would like to see occur more often or less often. There was one specific to a project in Carver County that we'll pass on to our partners at Carver County. The rest were a little more general in nature. This is your proposed action. I would be happy to read it. That's not true, but I can have a must. And this would be going to the for the full council, hopefully for their approval. And with that, I would stand for questions.
Thank you, Joe. Questions or comments? And I guarantee you, I will not read the entire thing at the meeting either, but it is to adopt the 2026 to 2029 Transportation Improvements Program for the Twin Cities and Metropolitan area as outlined in the business item. So with that, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
I make a motion.
Motion by Councilmember Carter, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Osman. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thanks.
And that concludes our business. I would say if everyone agrees, all but items 4 and 5 would go non-consent to the council. Yep. Very good. All right, on to information items. We have 2 information items this evening. The first is a workforce update. We have Alyssa Haugen and Shanta Hajmadi here to present.
Thank you, Chair, Council members.
And Cassandra.
Yeah, and Cassandra Tabor, sorting as our Chief Human Resources Officer. My name is Alyssa Haugen, Assistant General Manager, Administration and External Affairs. To kick us off, just wanted to ground us in Metro Transit forward. In order to connect people, strengthen communities, and improve lives, our work is really grounded in making sure that we're thinking about the employees that we need to deliver the service. Our state, our region has invested in expanding transportation. That means that we need to be thinking about not just the next service pick, but what the next 5 years of our workforce is looking like so that we can deliver on the investments and the expansion of our service that you have all supported us and approved. You will see today, as Shanta highlights, how this work is reflecting collaboration across all of Metro Transit, as well as with our regional administration partners, which is why Cassandra Tabor, our Chief Human Resources Officer, is here. We need to partner on access to data, as well as being able to tell our story so that we can plan ahead for the support that is needed in order to deliver our service. And it's that collaboration between all of our partners that really allows us to deliver better service for our customers. So I'd like to hand it off to Cassandra if you had a couple of words that you wanted to share.
Sure, thank you, Chair Barber, members of the committee. We're really excited today to talk about the work that we've shared for Metro Transit Forward. Obviously in human resources, the employees pillar is what's first and foremost for us. And in the last couple of years, being able to partner really closely with Leslie and her team to see some really significant improvement in our hiring targets. And then we have work to do together. I'm really excited about some of the positive movement that we've made together.
Great, and I'll hand it off to Shanta Hajmadi, our senior data scientist that has really led a lot of this effort through our workforce task force.
Awesome. Thank you, Madam Chair, members, council members. My name is Shanta Hajmadi. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm a senior data scientist at Metro Transit. And I'm here to tell you about our growing workforce. And I'm going to structure this presentation in 3 parts. First part is, where are we going? Where do we need to get to by 2030? The second part is, where are we today? How are things going? And what are the strategies that we're employing to get there? And finally, I'm going to end with just a little tidbit, little case study about the power of making relevant workforce data available to our business units. So let us start with where do we need to get to by 2030? But first, I actually want to place us in our context. Frontline workforces in general and transit workforces in particular have been in crisis since 2020. What you're looking at right now is aggregated NTD data, and this is a percent change in bus transit workforce size. This plot was made by the Transit Workforce Center. Compared to 2019, overall employment in bus transit was down over 5% in 2021. It had not fully recovered by the end of 2023. And this is aggregated national data, but the same is holding true at the local level. In 2023, APTA produced a workforce shortage synthesis report. Over 90% of the 160 transit agencies that they surveyed reported workforce shortages, and over 80% reported that it impacted their service. So now you're looking at Metro Transit's headcount data for the past 10 years. And you can see that same trend, but you can also see that we now have the green line pointing in the right direction. However, I would say, note that we need to get to here by 2030. And in the last 10 years, HR, instruction center, managers all over Metro Transit have been working all out to get that green line pointing at that blue dot. And you can see from this plot that we can do it. You can also see that it's going to take the same sustained level of effort for the next 5 years to get there. This is a marathon, not a sprint. But what does it look like in terms of numbers? So on the left, what I'm showing you is estimated headcounts. The first 3 are numbers that we basically know. These are the approximate, it's the current headcount as of July 26th. And the approximate budget headcounts, I'm not accounting for part-time FTEs there, but for 2025 and 2026 that we basically know. The ranges that you see there are really our best educated guesses based on the organization's plans for strategic growth. And we all know that plans change, sometimes quarter to quarter. So anytime you see something like its budget or target, consider that to be approximate and subject to change. On the right, what I've given you is actual headcounts, our mid-July headcounts sliced by 5 big job categories. These are not the same categories as the divisions that you saw in the budget presentation last time. Rather than being organized by work unit, these are organized by job function. And the rest of this presentation is going to follow those 5 categories in that order, actually. And let's go on. The categories are bus operators, rail operators, frontline maintenance, police officers, and community service officers, and everyone else. So let's start with bus operators. Now, I'm going to spend a little more time on bus operators because I have to explain this plot to you. Oh no, sorry, just kidding. I was in the next part of my presentation. The next set of plots is going to show you the actual headcounts compared with our approximate budget targets for the next 5 years. The dark color that you see is the actual headcount. The lighter colors are those approximate budget targets. And you can see it with bus operators. This is one of the areas where we have really successfully ramped up hiring and training at scale. This has allowed us to roll out new service improvements with every pick. We have now implemented 30% of our Network Now framework. On average right now, residents in this region can reach more jobs on transit than they could any time in the last 4 years. And we expect that we're going to need to increase our bus operator workforce by 350 to 360 in the next 5 years, and we know that we can do it. Moving on to light rail operators. Light rails operators are obviously a prerequisite for 10-minute frequency on light rail and for launching the Green Line extension. And so you're now looking at the same plot for rail operators. Now note here that the dark green is actually below the budget target. That means that we have fewer current employees than our 2025 current budget target. However, what I want to note is that when we have big service improvements in the works like that Green Line, the budget is a leading indicator and the headcount is a lagging indicator. It takes time to hire and train these operators, and we are able to be planful about doing that because of the investment that our state has made in public transit. Now, we have currently the budget capacity to fully staff Green Line extension and 10-minute light rail service, and we expect to be ready when launch day comes. Now, that last big bump that you see in 2030, that is in anticipation of Blue Line extension. Again, we're leading the service improvements.
Madam Chair.
Councilmember Johnson?
And just, first of all, thank you. This is amazing. I can sleep at night again. This is great. But when you say maybe going back to bus, we need so many more operators per year or rail, but that's a net gain.
Correct.
So you've got attrition.
Correct.
So do you have just a ballpark number of how many you need to hire in order to actually net out what you?
I am so glad you asked that, council member. Thank you so much. I'm actually going to address that a little further on in my presentation. So if you still have questions when they get there, please interrupt me again.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So moving on to frontline maintenance. Frontline maintenance, includes positions that serve bus, rail, and public facilities. And frontline maintenance staff is another growth area where it's a key readiness indicator for Green Line extension and also where the budget has to lead the service improvements. Now, these staff are also critical for customer perceptions of safety. I don't want to minimize that at all. Riders feel safer at clean, modern, upkept vehicles and stations, and these folks are critical in that work. We expect that we need to net 200 to 300 of these folks by 2030. Many of them will be in mechanic technician roles, which is the role that's fed by the apprenticeship program that you heard about a little bit earlier in the staff recognition. Police officers and community service officers, this category includes anybody who's boots on the ground, CSOs, officers, sergeants, lieutenants, captains, chief. And growth in police is another one of those key readiness indicators for Green Line extension. Again, you can see the budget leading the service improvements. We also know from our customer survey in 2024 that visible presence is very important for customer feelings of safety, and we expect to need to net 120 to 130 police and CSOs by 2030. Finally, we have this kind of leftovers bucket category, everyone else. This includes trip agents, street supervisors, frontline managers, safety staff, transit information control centers, planners, analysts, data scientists like me, marketing, finance, administration, so many positions that are largely invisible to riders, but things would really deteriorate without them. And so for this group, we are currently projecting that we will need to increase the size of this group by 600 to 800 by 2030. Now, I want to point out that trip agents, those are the ones that are not invisible to riders. They are very visible to riders. I'm going to pull them out in a second. That will account for some portion of that 600 to 800. They're kind of a special case, trip agents. This program was new in 2024, and it's quickly become a critical and foundational part of our visible presence efforts. They check fares, they administer Narcan, they connect riders with resources, they help with rules for riding behavior. Trip agents help customers feel safer. And again, you can see that our budget is leading our service improvements. You're going to hear me say that like 18 more times, so just be ready. This plot only includes employees, not contractors. This is only staff. So the TRIP program here is another one of those critical indicators, readiness indicators for Green Line extension and BRT launches. And you may be wondering why 2027 through 2030 are flat. We do not anticipate that the budgeted number of trip agents will drop, but the future staffing levels are currently just so unknown, we're not even comfortable putting a number on it. So that's just to let you know that we need to net approximately 100 to 150 trip staff by the end of 2026. All right, so that was where we're going. Now I want to talk about how things are going right now and what are we doing to move towards these goals. And these strategies that I'm going to mention, it's going to feel like a plot and a laundry list in this next section. That laundry list is really aimed at recruiting, hiring, training, and retention, one or more of those areas. And this next set of plots are our year-to-date hiring plots. And I'm going to take a little time to explain this one because there's kind of a lot going on here. The orange line, I guess it looks a little dark, really dark orange on these. That's total hires. That's the total number of people brought on. The green lines are net hires. That accounts for attrition. It's essentially based on a head count, a current head count, like at the end, or an average head count over that month. The dotted line is last year's, and the solid line, which isn't finished yet, is this year's. And that green ribbon that you can see, that is the pre-amendment 2025 budget with full staffing at the top and 90% staffing at the bottom. So that's just kind of the ballpark, like what's in the budget range. Now, you can see that bus operators are where we have invested the most resources in recent years into hiring, recruiting, training, and retention, and it really shows. You may think this looks like a surplus of bus operators. It is not. Just ask Jonathan. Bus operators and any other entry-level job, these are folks who are how we build up the base of our workforce. We're bringing in new people to transportation. These are the pipeline for a lot of other really important jobs like trip agents, helpers, cleaners, rail operators, instructors, frontline managers, and more. While they are operators, they are also filling dispatcher roles and relief instructor roles. And we need an internal pipeline for those critical positions, so that we can make those service improvements while also minimizing disruptions for customers. The bottom line here is that bus operators are an area, it's this prime example where when we invest the resources in hiring and retaining a particular group of employees, we can be successful. We've had aggressive marketing campaigns, we have extended the training period, we're now training people to get their CDLs, and they pass at a rate of about 90% of getting their commercial learners permits through that Week Zero program. Pay scales have improved since the 2023 ATU contract. We also have additional recruiting FTEs that the council approved last year to help with bus operators. That is really starting to pay dividends. We have an apprenticeship and mentoring program. This has been in existence for a long time. It is a benchmark in the industry. I go to a lot of workforce conferences and I hear about it all the time. And for right now, for the first time, we actually have dedicated staff who are building up our peer support program, which is very exciting. Now, this is not in the plot, but I just want to say bus operator retention over the last year is up across the board. Retention through training is almost as high as it's ever been. Retention through probation is back to pre-pandemic levels. First-year retention is up over 14 points in the last 12 months. So there is success happening here. This is very exciting. Okay, light rail operators, don't panic. This is the same plot for light rail operators, and you can see that the green line is below the budget target ribbon, but let me give you some context. Remember, we are budgeting for light rail operators in anticipation of green line extension. This is what a year-to-date hiring plot looks like when the budget leads the service improvements. That target range is the number of fully qualified operators we need to have by late 2027, and this plot only goes to the end of 2025. So, it takes time to fully train those operators. We can only hire them as fast as we can train them. And we currently have enough candidates, qualified candidates, to fill those light rail training classes through the end of the year. So you can see that big bump in July in both lines. We're expecting 4 more of those bumps before the end of the year because there are 4 more training classes coming before year's end. So for this group, we have expanded hiring to include internal and external candidates. There's an upcoming marketing campaign, pay has improved, and the expanded peer support program also covers these folks. Now for frontline maintenance, you can see that same pattern of the budget leading the service improvements, right? The good news here is that as of the beginning of August, bus and rail maintenance told us that they were currently staffed at 85% of what they needed to fully function this year. So that's really good news. And as far as strategies for success, there's way more here than I have time to tell you about. Is Abel still here? If you have questions, you can grill him because he knows all about it. He spent a lot of time with me telling me about it. But I'll just say briefly that our approach to hiring mechanic technicians, which is one of the largest subsets in this group, is multi-pronged. We can hire experienced mechanics. We can hire and train brand new mechanics through the apprenticeship program. And we can now source candidates from third-party recruiters. We also have career pathway programs for entry-level mechanics and technicians in other types of jobs in this category. Those programs are managed by Workforce Development in partnership with the ATU. Frontline maintenance is also included in the marketing campaigns, and there are plans to expand peer support to include the most public-facing roles in this category. Now, for police and CSOs, you can again see that the budget is leading the service improvements, and this one may look a little scarier to you, but let me just say, it's important to note that this year's recruiting efforts have not fully shown up in this plot yet. We have a lot to be optimistic about. You may probably have heard the chief say something about this recently. We have the CSO Pathways program managed by Workforce Development that's been very successful at building up a pipeline of employees who could become sworn officers. There's currently 21 CSOs, and there's more in the recruitment pipeline that don't show up on this plot. We have 2 police academies running this year, which we hope will yield up to 20 sworn officers. We're currently in a pilot program where there's a dedicated recruiter just for PD, and anecdotally that has actually resulted in more candidates than we have seen historically. We also have an upcoming marketing campaign that's going to be featuring police and CSOs, and we're essentially hoping to net about 30 new staff in this group by the end of 2025, and a bunch of those folks are not showing up here yet because they are still in process. Now finally, everyone else. You can see again, there's that pattern, the budget is leading the service improvements, and so the strategies that I'm listing here are really broader workplace initiatives. These are things that are aimed at net change across the organization. Workforce Development is going to be rolling out a redesigned year-round internship program in 2026. We're very excited about this. We expect that it's going to really expand our capacity to train up that next generation of the transportation workforce in all kinds of roles. In 2026, there are plans to expand the peer support program to include control center staff and street supervisors. And of course, our Metro Transit Forward goals are aligned with the Great Workplace program and our ongoing culture work at the council. There's a big push for manager training coming from the council this year. And there's also a general recruitment marketing campaign that's coming up in 2025. And so that's all exciting things. And let's look at trip agents again, because we're all very interested in trip agents right now. This is a subset of that everyone else category. You can see that we're putting a lot of energy and resources into trip agents. And aside from that $57 million investment that you heard about last time, it will likely include some contracted trip agents. But what you are looking at right now is staff. There are plans to expand the peer support program to include TRIP staff in 2026. And I just want to also say, TRIP is really popular. This is another pipeline for people to join Metro Transit, to join transportation. This is us building the transportation workforce. It attracts internal candidates too. We get bus operators, rail operators, many other frontline employees want to join TRIP. And in addition to the critical work that they do on our system, TRIP is a retention tool. It's not only a safety tool, right? It's also a retention tool for employees. This is another role that they can serve in where they can stay with the agency and do work that's a little bit different. So also I want to mention, this one's looking really good, right? We see that green line, it is up at the top of that budget target. We are feeling happy about this. There's a new cohort that started on August 11th. They're not even showing up here yet because our numbers don't come out to the end of the month.
Madam Chair.
Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you. And just to differentiate again, this is Met Council staff.
Correct.
Direct staff.
That's correct,
And not
Councilmember.
counting TRIP that's part of the contract.
Exactly.
The big contract.
That's exactly right, Councilmember Johnson.
And are we seeing any movement from contract people that want to work? I mean, it's not going to get us a +1, but is there any movement between the two groups?
I'm going to phone a friend and see if Brian Funk is still here. Yes?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, council members. Brian Funk, Chief Operating Officer. Short answer is yes. We do see some interest in people who have moved from a current contractor over to become Metro Transit employees, and we expect that to continue. Some people have expressed that they enjoy the flexibility of working for a contractor or may want to move into security on that side, but we're happy to take those applications and like people who have some experience coming in.
And just one
Councilmember
quick
Johnson.
question. Thank you, Madam Chair. And then are benefits is there parity, just so, I mean, I don't need to know that today. It can be certainly a follow-up, but I'm just always curious about when we've got people coming in from two different entities, that movement between and the parity then of their maybe salaries or benefits and all that. But to your point, you get flexibility in one group that you might not in the other, so.
Yeah, Madam Chair and council member will follow up
Okay.
and see what we can learn about that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. So just coming to a close here. I just showed you those plots of year-to-date hiring and those laundry lists of all the strategies and investments that we're making to meet our workforce goals. But long-term, what does success actually look like? Well, the return that we're trying to get on those investments of those targeted strategies is to grow a sustainable workforce where most of the employees want to build their career here and stay with us. And let's come back to this headcount plot that I showed you at the very beginning. This is one way of thinking about return on investment. Our current headcount is higher than it has been since we have been keeping people's soft records. We have come out of our post-pandemic slump. That is huge. And here's another way to look at return on investment. What you're looking at now is 12-month retention rates broken out by first-year employees in purple, employees in their second year and later in orange, and overall in green. We're seeing returns on the investments that we are making in our workforce. First-year retention overall is up over 13 points from its low point a year ago, and this is 12-month retention. So if you were here in this month, are you still going to be here 12 months later? Is what this is looking at. First year, over 13 points. Overall retention is actually basically higher than it's ever been since we've started keeping people's soft records. I didn't expect that to happen. Like that increasing was a surprise to me. Now, this is really wrapping up our how are things going and what are our strategies for success section. Oh yeah, here's the first year retention is up, higher than it's basically ever been. Very exciting. And finally, a little tidbit of a case study here for you. I want to tell you about all the data that makes those plots that I showed you, and a whole bunch more data, is available to a select group of analysts in various departments at Metro Transit that they can use to help their departments visualize data that helps them understand their workforce and make decisions. And I'm going to tell you about engineering and facilities. So how did we get here? Well, starting in April 2024, this is well over a year ago, we began working with HR to get access to our personnel data and develop clean, useful data sets for reporting. As soon as word got out that we were doing this, we had a deluge of requests, and basically every business unit needs something just a little bit different. And so we made it part of this project to develop generally useful aggregated data sets that we could publish to a database daily. So now we have a team of business analyst testers who have access to these data, and they can create their own custom internal reports. And one really cool result of this was getting feedback from the business that helped us improve the categories. So we worked with ENF to add a bunch of job descriptions in their frontline maintenance category that we had missed in the first pass. And this then gave them the ability to develop their internal facing Power BI report, which I'm going to show you a couple screenshots from. So this is a purely internal report designed by the business unit for the business unit to help them monitor their workforce. But what's really cool is that when managers and leaders in engineering and facilities want to know, so how many facilities technicians do we have in each department and how has that changed over time? Well, the analysts in ENF have an easy answer for them. Or if they want to know, how many public facilities employees are there in each job description? It's equally easy for them to get that answer. And I just want to finish by saying that all the work that's gone into our workforce reporting, it doesn't just mean that I can show you cool plots. It means that we have the tools and the data to monitor how things are going, to make decisions and course corrections, and to hold ourselves accountable for meeting our workforce goals. Meeting those service improvements and capital investment goals is going to require a right-sized and right-skilled workforce. Our workforce moves this metro in so many ways, and we're optimistic that with sustained effort, we will realize our shared vision for transportation in our community. And with that, I am happy to stand for questions.
Councilmember Chambliss.
Thank you for this presentation. I often get the focus of what are the jobs that you get for constructing these light rail projects, but this presentation reveals the importance of jobs that our operations and maintenance provides to the communities that we serve. And it shows the magnitude of the impact that the Met Council has. So, and I'm a data person, so I really like to see the data anyway, but the data is really going to strengthen families and communities like our vision says. So.
No questions and comments?
Madam Chair.
Councilmember Johnson.
This is awesome. So love it. And I really appreciate how there's a back end now supporting all of this that we didn't really have in place before. So in the last 2-3 years, that's come into being. And then we're looking at 2030. So how often do we make the adjustment then to go to whatever the next, are we doing it in 5-year increments? Or are we doing it basically based on when we're bringing lines and growing back our service? So, when do you get the cue to like, okay, 2030 isn't the thing anymore?
Thank you, Madam Chair, Councilmember Johnson. So you're asking at what point would we make like an updated plot that went like a further year out? I don't know that I know the answer to that question. I might defer to Leslie on that one.
No, Chair, Councilmember Johnson, excellent question, and I do think it's really driven on how far out we're planning. So to your point, as our plans for future years become more in focus, we'll need to continue this. So I don't know that we've worked out a particular formula of what triggers that addition, but we'll continue to look out ahead. And certainly as we have more information about what that future horizon looks like, it allows us to re-up these estimates. So
Yeah, thank you for that. And just to connect all the dots, the money from 2023 makes it possible because now we know we've got money that will go out to what year, Chair Barber, 30 years, I think? 25. 25, thank you.
We just voted on it.
Sorry, 25. I was thinking 30, maybe 2030. But it doesn't have to be all decided in one night, but that you can build the pieces along the way, which we did not have before. Here we have this major operation. We're working under Thrive. Now we've got 2050 Imagine, and without all of this, it would start to crumble. And that was the thing that we were starting to notice, and then we were working on our culture work, and all of that matters, and bringing on the trip agents. And thank you, Madam Chair, for your leadership through all of this, because you've been through the lows and the highs. So I have so much confidence, and I really appreciate the data, because you can do a guess, or I think, but it doesn't tell you where you need to go or where you've been. and then you can plot your course going forward. And that is just also, I think, super important when you're trying to attract people to your organization. You're not just, you know, here we go, we hope it goes well. It's really saying that we're going to own our future. And that, I think, to your point, Councilmember Chambliss, will pay dividends on 2050 Imagine.
General Manager Canderas.
Yes, thank you, Chair Barber and Councilmember Johnson. Thanks for raising the 25-year forecast. It made me think I should clarify what I said a little bit. Is obviously as we're building our assumptions around that 25-year forecast, that baked into that are certain staffing assumptions. I just didn't want to give the hope that it would be this fine-grained of an estimate that we're providing, but I did want to clarify that that's part of our 25-year forecast planning.
Perfect. Additional questions, Councilmember Osman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I really appreciate it. I see a lot of progress and great numbers as we head into the opening new line and new projects. From time to time, I get some emails and from applicants that who didn't make next step, but they didn't get any feedback. So how we communicate for those kind of applicant, and is how we keep all their resumes in case of opening another role maybe?
Madam Chair, Councilmember Osman, thank you for that. I am going to phone my other friend, Cassandra, and let Cassandra take that because she knows way more about the recruiting system than I do.
So I just want to make sure I understood your questions. You are wondering if someone were to apply for a specific position, not receive that position, do we keep their information in hopes of another position? That's a great question. So the answer to that would be twofold. One, in that initial application period, if they are interested in anything else, then we try to get them directed into one of those other postings immediately. We have limitations legally on how long we can keep information unless we have like a recruitment list, but we do let applicants know that they're welcome to apply for multiple things multiple times and it can come back around. So maybe they applied for something and didn't have their CDL, maybe didn't pass their CDL. It doesn't mean they can't ever apply again. So we give people multiple opportunities at multiple jobs.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Additional questions, comments? All right, I'll just say this was great. I think, you know, we have some pretty bold ambitions going out, and to do that well and actually have it work, you have to plan, and this is very, very evident that there's a lot of planning going on in multiple fronts, whether it was our funding allocation to this, to some of these other presentations we've had lately, and also I really appreciate the way that this was presented because it was very relatable and it was very understandable. So just really appreciate it all the time. So,
Thank you, Madam Chair.
thank you. All right, we have one additional information item tonight. It's the 2025 second quarter ridership update. We have John Harper and Joey Reed here.
Thank you, Madam Chair, committee members. John Harper, I am manager of contracted transit service in MTS, and with me is Joey Reed, who is principal data scientist within strategic initiatives at Metro Transit. We added our titles to the slide because I always struggle to get his exact title put together. So we're here to present to you the second quarter ridership for 2025. So that's year to date through June. And as is typical, I'm going to give you the numbers, and then Joey here is going to dive into more detail. And want to set the stage a little bit here. This, as you see on this summary slide here, we are a little bit down from last year through the first half of this year. I happen to see, and I'm sure that most of you have seen that Star Tribune article came out yesterday with a lot of the context, I think, very similar to what we'll be talking about here. About that, yes, we are a little bit behind in our last year in the recovery, but we'll talk a little bit about the numbers. Joey's going to talk about how we, the context of being here, and then how we're setting ourselves up for moving forward. So in
into the numbers. As you see here, through June, we have been under, in 2025, under 2024's numbers, but in July, we're pretty much even up with last year. So maybe that's saying that we are reversing that trend and increasing again. We'll see where that goes over the next quarter. As we break down the ridership into the component parts, you can see here the smaller items on the right here fit in primarily into local bus and into light rail. Those pieces are a little bit smaller this year than they were last year over the first 6 months, and we'll give you some exact numbers here on the next slide. So this shows these component parts, and you can see that indeed light rail is down, and bus is down a little bit. I'll talk to you in 2 slides a little bit about the demand response numbers, but you can see those numbers specifically here. And so we are down about 7% overall from in the first half of this year compared to the first half of 2024. To break down the bus like we always do, there's local, there's BRT, and there's express. And you can see here that express and BRT are up. That local is down about 6%, and so the smaller component part, as I mentioned earlier. As we talk about this piece, there have been moving parts, and there really are a number of things going on here. So let me share, because this isn't part of that Joey's presentation next, but let me just share with you that we continue to increase our microtransit hours of service, and so that microtransit value goes up year over year. Just want to refresh for the committee or maybe share, if you've not heard this before, that we started with the North Minneapolis zone in September of 2024. I think I got my years right. 3. Sorry?
North Minneapolis started.
No, correct. Yeah. We started with the pilot, then we added the Woodbury and Roseville zones. In January. These all, the time sometimes gets a little confused, but so in January, we now have expanded to Roseville, and we will expand to Blaine area in only a couple weeks from now. And so just in the first, since January, the Roseville and Woodbury zones each are up to 120 rides per day. That is with about 50 hours of service or 55 hours of service. So that's a productivity that's a little over 2. And for microtransit, that 2 or 3 is really what we expect. It's a coverage type service that connects people locally and connects people into the greater service. And so I think as we expand out to these other zones that we talk about, I think we're going to see similar productivity in those zones. But that's over the first year, and we continue to work on marketing in those other zones and implementing the zones as we move forward. I want to share that as you see the bottom 2 items here, the Metro Mobility Special Transportation item and the Metro Move Special Transportation. I think we've talked in previous meetings about the implementation of Metro Move as a program, moving ridership from Metro Mobility to Metro Move. Metro Move takes our human service focused ridership and moves it into its own program for people who are receiving waivers, and those people had been in our Metro Mobility program. So that is that movement, that increase of 97,000 in our Metro Move program really almost comes directly from Metro Mobility. There is about 100,000 rides here also on Metro Mobility that is not attributable to that. And we found out actually just today that the premium on-demand service that we operate within a Metro Mobility program was counted in the numbers in 2024, was not counted in the numbers in 2025. That is about 80,000 rides in our premium on-demand. That is a service where we allow our Metro Mobility certified riders to ride on a taxi, and the same day they schedule the taxi trip, we pay part of it, they pay part of it. Because it's a special premium on-demand program, sometimes it gets a little confusing about when we do and don't count it in our ridership numbers. So we'll make an adjustment to the slide here, and we can make that available back to the committee so you can see apples to apples as opposed to missing out on that premium on-demand. So just with those clarifications on this slide, I will move on and say that those really are the numbers, and I will turn the presentation over to Joey to talk in more detail on the ridership trends.
Thank you, John. So ridership throughout 2025 through June is down 7% compared to 2024, which makes 2025 look a little bit more like 2023, unfortunately. Of course, we all want to know where that ridership is going. And if you look at it by route, we can see the routes with the biggest gains in ridership on the left in blue, the routes with the biggest losses of ridership on the right in red, and the 2024 numbers in gray. Blue and green line combined are a little over 1.1 million rides lost since 2024, which represents about 61% of the decline in ridership that we saw over year to date compared to 2024. Also on that is C-Line, which is also a proof of payment route, and where we do have some trip agents working as well as a blue and green line. And the 62, which had a free fare pilot previously in 2024 that ended. Some good news, Orange Line ridership is really leading the way in growth here. And the 94 is up as well, which will connect to some of the, I'll talk a little bit more how that connects to recent service that we opened. But unfortunately, those gains aren't nearly on the scale of the losses.
Madam Chair.
Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you. And so on the ones that aren't doing as well, certainly you mentioned trip agents, so making sure people feel safe and secure and all the things that we know we have to do on all the lines, but particularly some. And then how are we factoring in that there has been a callback to a degree for workers to come back into the downtowns? Right. And maybe we're not seeing that number yet, but as a data scientist, wish I could be one of those one day when I grow up. Do you think that you'll see this? Because, as planners in modes that are successful, looking at this isn't great. And I'm not trying to make a big assumption, but we need to figure out how to turn that around. And then we'll be bringing on Green Line, so we don't know how that'll be, I don't know what our projections are for that, but that'll start showing up in 2028 probably. So I'm just curious as to, this is important data, we can surmise some things, but is there anything in the data that is really telling you why it's going down?
Yeah, Madam Chair, Councilmember Johnson, we don't know exactly why. There are a lot of factors that are probably contributing. We think that the trip agents and the visible presence on board, Blue and Green Line in particular, may be decreasing ridership in the short term with a really good outlook for the future of ridership on those routes as we make those systems feel safer and more comfortable for general public riding. There are some other factors involved too, and shutdowns, reliability issues. I'm going to address a few of those later in the presentation, but generally speaking, there's market factors like the demand for transportation generally, which includes return to work. Things like competitiveness with other modes, so speed and reliability, congestion, parking availability and cost are some big drivers there. And I believe I have a slide that addresses some of that, but right, for example, we're not seeing a lot of parking demand at the moment. There's a lot of free parking space, so it appears that there's not a lot of stick out there driving people to switch modes at the moment.
And Madam
Member
Chair.
Chambliss, sorry, she's been raising.
Oh, I just want to say that at some point, if this is persistent and it's sticky, we have to really start to think about what modes we employ. If there's a mode that's on the rise and we see that it's meeting, I just think that this is good information for now, but how do we apply that towards future planning as well?
Councilmember Chambliss.
My comments and questions are somewhat similar to Councilmember Johnson's in terms of, especially in terms of looking at the numbers where there's a large change, maybe digging a little deeper as to what the root causes or contributing factors are. Maybe there's some mode switching, like you mentioned with the Metro Mobility. They have some other options, to take the prime service, or perhaps they decide to take a microtransit instead. So there's some digging, maybe a survey could be done on that. And then for the same thing for the light rail, before you mentioned the visible presence. That was one of the things that popped into my mind that might deter some folks that might have been riding for social reasons versus to get to their destination, or maybe doing a little bit of both, or folks that were not paying previously that now are maybe thinking twice about getting on that vehicle. The fare checks that we're doing, I'm not sure that this is a high number, but homeless referrals of people that were riding the trains for extended periods of time. And then the trends in terms of the seasons where you start to see more people riding for that purpose because they're getting shelter on the buses. And I believe if we looked at ridership, and I know we've seen presentations where there is some cyclical patterns. And then for those individuals that are having to go back into work 3 to 5 times a week now, is there a matchup with the service availability? Even though we have Network Now coming on board, there might be a mismatch in timing. So I think we need to look at it for a longer period of time. But where we see the percent changes kind of high, maybe, digging deeper into that, how many, during that time period where we had the decline, what, can we track the individuals that were not paying during that time period compared to, now, and vice versa, and see if there might be some things that we should be watching. But I think this is important data for us to have on the ridership, but I think I would caution to say that because we have a decline trend, that we need to rethink a mode that we're supporting.
And to Councilmember Chavez, to your point, one of the things with return to work is one of the things we've permanently suspended a lot of was computer services, and we don't know, we're not seeing the feedback of empty parking spaces or very expensive parking or some of those things that trigger commuter services. So you're accurate that we do have to look over longer term trends. It's important to acknowledge this and figure out as much as we can, but it's definitely looking over longer windows. All right, any other, Councilmember Osman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just wondering if we are alone on this, or other metro area experience similar decline, or other agencies. Do we know anything about it?
Yeah, Madam Chair, Councilmember. Other areas, other metros are experiencing various levels of recovery from the pandemic. St. Louis and Atlanta are also seeing some declines recently. Others that we consider peers are doing sort of flat, like Portland, Oregon, and then some others that have expanded their service recently, like Seattle, are doing a bit better. Across the board, really. Thank you.
Councilmember Chambliss?
Yeah, and that was one other thing that I was thinking about too, that as we expand the service, how long does it take to ramp up? So expanding services quickly is going to have a direct impact on our ridership numbers.
Any additional? All right, back to you guys.
Thanks. So addressing part of that market question, what this graph is showing is the boardings per hour throughout the day. What we've seen, so the black line is the pre-pandemic ridership trend, and there was a really strong AM peak commute spike. 7 a.m., it was crowded buses. Nowadays, 7 a.m. is sort of not at all noteworthy. And we actually started to see a slow increase throughout the midday and into the PM peak in terms of ridership. And that pattern hasn't really changed for the last few years. So the AM peak is still sort of the lowest, the slowest to return. And over on the right, if you look at the 21, which is 9 p.m., we're actually seeing like higher levels of boardings per hour in the evening than we were prior to the pandemic. So we're seeing growth in some areas, pretty high recovery in others, and then AM peak is really slow, which I think is getting a little bit to that question of the chicken and egg question about, are we providing enough service for office commuters? And if we are they using it, or do they want to use it? It looks like there's not a lot of demand for it still. We have been increasing service over the last couple of years. Last fall, we increased a light rail service from every 15 minutes to every 12 minutes for an 8-hour period of the day. And again, to the sort of question about the span of service, we're extending that 12-minute span into the AM peak in October, which should help meet some of that return to work demand if it exists. We've also grown bus service over the last 2 years, and I'll give you an example of that, which is the Gold Line opening in March. So ridership on that corridor is, ridership on Gold Line is around 1,100 rides per weekday, which also includes 1,100 rides on Saturdays. And I think that illustrates that this service, this all-day fast frequent service, is meeting a lot of different needs. We don't see weekday and Saturday ridership being equivalent on routes that are serving primarily commuters. So that's really cool to see here. It's also showing us that we've about doubled the ridership in that I-94 corridor. We think there's some spillover effect here too, because we see some growth on the Route 94. So people are probably taking advantage of the fast frequent service on Gold Line to connect to other frequent routes that expand their mobility throughout the region. We know that a really important part of people choosing to ride transit is how they feel about it. And over the last 3 years, customer satisfaction has remained really stable. Around 2/3 of customers say that they're satisfied with our service. We can dig in more deeply and ask, about specific aspects of that satisfaction. And one of the most important ones is how people feel about safety. So onboard buses, 64% of people say they feel safe. Those numbers drop quite considerably waiting at bus stops and then onboard trains and at train stations. But the good news is that those numbers have also improved quite considerably over the last year. So we're seeing 7 and 8 point increases at stops and on trains and at train stations. There's still a lot of work to do, but we're moving in a good direction. We know that visible presence, so the trip agents, for example, and MTPD are improving perception of safety and are likely to have short-term impacts on ridership. Deterring some people who are riding maybe not for transportation purposes from riding is going to mean a decline in some of that ridership, but really setting us up for success in the long run. The trip agents really began working last year, which is why I think we're seeing potentially that effect this year in our year-to-date numbers. And I personally have had really good experiences with trip agents and the sort of atmosphere that they help create on board trains. And in the long run, we know that safe, fast, frequent, reliable service grows ridership in the long term. Riders report that they would ride more if they feel safer. We're expanding our high-frequency service, including routes like Gold Line, and expanding spans of high-frequency service, for example, on Blue and Green Line this fall. And Network Now is going to continue to improve that. On average, residents are reaching more jobs on transit, or can reach more jobs on transit, than they have any time in the last 4 years. And I think the big question for us right now is really like, as we start to see more of these return to work mandates or return to office mandates, are those going to spill over into transit ridership? And I think that's a really big question around, are enough people going to change their habits in such a way that they start to feel the pain of congestion or the pain of parking costs or availability, that our service looks that much more competitive. And with that, I'm happy to take questions.
Yep. And Madam Chair, before we take questions, I just want to add something anecdotal, and that is I live near St. Thomas and work in downtown St. Paul, and Route 63 is my route into work. And I work 3 days a week, and there's a vast difference to the ridership. That's the number of people on the bus with me on the various days of the week. And I think about a 2-day or a 3-day or a 4-day mandate. 2 days versus 3 days is 33% less, is much less ridership in that work commute, right? And so if people move from 2 days to 3, that's a 50% increase. If they move from 3 to 4, it's an increase. And so just the number of, it's not how many people necessarily, it's the number of days they're coming back. And to Joey's point, if that puts pressure on parking, that's yet another reason people come to transit. And that's just in one sector of one market that we serve, the work commute. But I see that Friday mornings, the bus is very empty because people don't work on Fridays in the office, in downtown St. Paul. And so I'm very lonely on the bus on Fridays, where I'm not lonely on the bus on Tuesdays. And so it's interesting, just anecdotally, to see how that changes across the days of the week.
Very interesting. Councilmember Pacheco.
Yeah, Madam Chair, just anecdotally as well, is if you go to downtown where my office is, the getting into a ramp on Tuesdays is tough. And that tells you that Dayton are not our target ramp. You can't get in, or you are sent over to another area, and so you see the people downtown. That I think it may have some impact. But and the other side there is that I don't know if Gold Line is impacted by all this construction. If you can't take 94 half the time, I don't know if you get on the train or not, or take a bus or not. There's all these little factors in there. But the final one for me is that just in the last week, I've been out more with people I know and grew up in the neighborhood over in South Minneapolis, and it's the fear of safety. And these are people who've, again, have been around. And I had one friend that's executive out in Eden Prairie, and he was looking to get his daughter to the airport. But he will not go through downtown Minneapolis. So he won't take the train or whatever, and that's safety. So even as we make things better, we have a serious public relations problem that we have to also address as we go through that, because I'm surprised at this point, because I see things like we do here getting better, and the response better, but out there it's sometimes a very different story.
Additional questions, comments?
Madam Chair.
Councilmember Johnson.
I appreciate that, Councilmember Pacheco. I, too, have heard of people that were transit riders that just won't anymore. So, perception is reality, but we have a real problem, too. And not as bad, though, as in some other regions we know. So, it's, as we all know, it's not just Met Council's issue, it's society's issue around us. So, I think that we have to just look at what we've got, and we have to look at the reality of things, and we have to, we're working with partners, we're trying to do all the things, but people's fears are real, and they've had experiences where they encounter something and they're like, I'm not doing that again, and I'm not sending my kids, and, on and on. And you're right, it is a public relations thing, but how do we, in this time that we're, everything's changing, and I don't know how we get our hands and heads around this, but we're also building out a system as rapidly as we can. So it's just very nuanced in everything, and that's why data has to drive. But your point that, your folks that should be, you would think comfortably riding transit, they're the ones saying no too. And so then what do we do? Is it, and then generationally, young people coming up, I don't know what they are riding now, these, bikes that have engines on them. That changes things too. So I think this is the place to be, though, if this kind of puzzle, is interesting to you. And so, we're doing the work, but these are so many small points of data that, it's hard to make big assumptions, but, you talk to just folks out there, and people want to have confidence in the system, and many, many do. But others that should be riding or want to ride aren't.
Anything else? All right, thank you. Really appreciate it. Always interesting data. If there's nothing else from the committee, all right, we are adjourned.